Morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh at live in Studio North. In the 70 hours since I last spoke with you, Hurricane Helene has wrought enormous damage across the United States. It hit as had a Category 4 in the Big Bend region, but I think most of the damage is really in North Carolina, Tennessee, and in Georgia. More than 90 people have died as a result of the storm. At least 30 people in North Carolina, 25 in South Carolina, 17 in Georgia. The pictures that you're seeing, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, are from Western North Carolina and Asheville area. And if you want to help, I recommend Team Rubicon. They are the immediate dispatch. They get the power turned back on. They rescue people. They help muck out the houses. They do the heavy lifting. Team Rubicon has been around for 20 years, and that's what they do. They're former Special Force people, as well as first responders from across the United States who have vacation time that they devote to this, and they go in and they help. And it's been absolutely dreadful what has happened to our friends. I checked in with my own friends in North Carolina and Tennessee, and they escaped the worst of it, though it was bad. They did not have their homes washed away or their cars or roads blown out. They lost power for a while. There are still tens of thousands of people without power this morning. Hurricane Helene did a number on North Carolina, and prayers for everyone there. If you want to help, Team Rubicon is the place to do that. Also, over the weekend, Israel continued what I think really began after Prime Minister Netanyahu returned from the United States after his July 24 address to Congress. Remember, Speaker Mike Johnson, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Republican and Democrat respectively, invited Netanyahu to the United States to address Congress in July. They had set it up for months, and he finally arrived on July 24th, and Vice President Harris, who is President of the Senate, pursuant to the Constitution, boycotted the address, skipped it, said she had a scheduling conference. The President Biden, and Vice President Harris subsequently met privately with Netanyahu, and he returned to Israel, and things began to change. Now, I am just surmising, but I can tell you what happened. 2 months later, when Netanyahu addressed the UN, things had fundamentally changed. First, Israel took all restraint that the United States wanted in Gaza and said, go away. They obliterated everything that Hamas had in Rafah. They killed DF, who is the number 2 guy there. They have all but destroyed the tunnel network. They are methodically working their way through. They continue to hope to reclaim their 101 hostages, at least half of whom are believed to be alive. But on July 13th, they had dropped the bomb on DF before Netanyahu came, but his death was not confirmed until afterwards. Then, on July 31st, after Netanyahu attacked, Israel assassinated Hanaya, the political figurehead or leader of Hamas, as he visited Tehran. Then they killed Faoud Shakur in Lebanon. He was the military leader of Hezbollah, their chief of staff, on July 30th. A week later, the entire elite of the Radwan force, which was the special operators, the most elite of the Hezbollah terrorists, were all demolished in an airstrike on September 20th in Beirut. And then on September 28th, over the weekend, Hezbollah's leader for 40 years, Hassan Nasrallah, and 10 other senior members of Hezbollah were killed in an airstrike that was really 6 airstrikes in succession in Lebanon to make sure he was dead, along with an Iranian Revolutionary Guard senior general who was meeting in Nasrallah's underground bunker. Over the weekend, since the Nasrallah hit, we have seen they have killed another senior Hezbollah official in Beirut. His name is Qaouk, Qaouk, who is the commander of their preventative security unit, not so preventative. A Hamas leader and a PLFP, that's an old group leader, 2 other terrorists were killed in Beirut. And Israel's special forces have entered into Lebanon, into the tunnels of Hezbollah, in what is anticipated to be the preparatory work to a ground incursion of some period of time designed to destroy the tunnels and the threat to the northern communities of Israel, which have been under fire since October 8th and have been vacated. The cross-border operations, their extent, we don't know. We just have reports that they are ongoing. Meanwhile, Netanyahu's coalition got bigger. And remember, there are 120 seats in Israel's parliament, the Knesset. Netanyahu's coalition controls 64. Gideon Sa'ar, a former Likud member, former ally of Netanyahu, had a falling out with him, put that aside and came back in, bringing 4 more seats with him, so it's 68 seats. All I can gather is that when Netanyahu came to the United States, he realized Joe Biden is a husk of himself. He might have a couple of good hours a day. He has muscle memory of supporting Israel, but he really can't be counted on. And the surrender monkeys that surround him make no impression on Netanyahu anymore. Then he met with the vice president, who I believe will be the most anti-Israel president we have ever had if she wins. Polling is all over the place, but the most important poll over the weekend is that Latinos are shifting significantly towards Donald Trump. And all of America saw the numbers put out by Immigration Customs Enforcement on the 600,000 convicted criminals who are in the United States. Now, they didn't all come under Biden and Harris. I don't know how many did. I know we have 13,000 convicted murderers who entered the country illegally, 16,000 rapists and other sexual assaulters who entered the country illegally, and they're here. And we're not doing anything to deport them, find them, get them out. Nothing. We're not doing that. And that is a major issue. Now, the vice presidential debate tomorrow night, which, by the way, will be carried on the Salem News Channel and simulcast on the Salem Radio Network. The Salem News Channel will have it beginning at 7 with Larry Elder. At 9 p.m., a simulcast of the presidential debate on the Salem News Radio Network, and then post-debate live analysis from Andrew Wilco and Jeff Vaughn on the Salem News Channel at 10:30 p.m. But if you want to listen to it, we'll have it on the radio simulcast with CBS. Don't count on much, because Margaret Brennan and Nora O'Donnell are both Kamala supporters. And it's just obvious that they're Kamala supporters. And they're busy figuring out how to screw J.D. Vance and how to help out the buffoon Tim Walz, who got booed at the Big House on Saturday, the Big House, Michigan's football stadium. Tim Walz is really revealing himself as kind of a clownish character, incapable of doing even one interview and incapable of defending a radical record in Minnesota. The most important thing about Tim Walz, you got to realize that's the first decision Kamala Harris made, was to pick him and not Josh Shapiro. Probably because Josh Shapiro is Jewish and a very strong supporter of Israel, and she thought she was going to lose Michigan. But in a poll of Michigan's Senate race, Mike Rogers versus Elise Slotkin, Rogers up by 5 points over the weekend. Because all the Arab Americans, all the Jewish Americans, all know that Kamala Harris is a recipe for war and disaster in the Middle East. She's weak and she's vacuous. That is the word, by the way, that everyone is using to cover up for the fact she doesn't know anything. And it's become obvious. She really does not have a plan or a thought in her head. And I just do believe that what you've got is someone who was carried forward by the hot air of San Francisco up through the Bay Area political machine, eventually nominated after serving in the Alameda District Attorney's Office. She went to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. She put her hand up. Her patron was Willie Brown. She won the district attorney. From there, she ran for and won the nomination to be the Attorney General of California, deep blue state, barely beat a nominal Republican who had been the district attorney of Los Angeles. And Steve was a fine guy, but I mean, just as boring as could be. So she's basically been wafted on the efforts of others to the top of the ticket. And she can't run. She's given 6 interviews. Since she was nominated, they are all absolute empty vessels of babble. And she's just stopped doing that. Her numbers are falling. People are deserting her. The Stephanie Ruhle interview was a disaster, and there's no turning this around. And I don't believe she's going to win, but Netanyahu cannot take that chance. So what you see unfolding in Israel over the weekend, and I believe going on for the next 5 weeks, is Israel saying we cannot take the chance that Kamala Harris is going to be president. We have to finish off our enemies in Lebanon and in Gaza, and maybe elsewhere, like in Yemen, where they hit very hard yesterday. Very tough response. If you're going to fire a ballistic missile at Israel, expect to lose your oil refineries. That's a message, by the way, to the mullahs in Iran. That message is very clear. You hit us again like you did in April, Karg Island will look like that if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. The Houthis lost all their oil refinery capacity and electrical generation yesterday. They're driving Yemen back into, they were already in the 17th century, now they're going back to the 10th century, because you don't mess with Israel. I'm Hugh.